Welcome to the Physician's Guide to Financial Wellness, the podcast dedicated to helping physicians in Michigan turn their professional success into financial success while enjoying life along the way. And now, here are your hosts, Andrew Mushbaugh and Trent DeBruin.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Physician's Guide to Financial Wellness. My name's Trent DeBruin, and I'm joined by my co-host / business partner / brother-in-law, Andrew Mushbaugh.
A lot of different connections there.
And we're so happy that you're joining us for this initial episode, and we're really excited to share a little bit about the podcast and what you can expect from it going forward. We'll also give you some background on ourselves, what brought us to where we are today, and what we hope our listeners will gain from listening to this podcast. So I think a good place to start out is just to talk a little bit about where the idea came from. Why did we decide to start a podcast? Last time we checked the stats, there were how many different podcasts out there?
Too many to count, but it was somewhere around 850,000.
So 850,000 podcasts out in the world. Why did we decide to go for it as well? Well, in our professional lives, Andrew and I are certified financial planners, and we run a financial planning and wealth management firm located in Chelsea, Michigan, so just outside of Ann Arbor. And the name of our firm is MD Wealth Management, and we specialize in working with physicians. And we have clients in a number of different states, but most of our clients are physicians here in Michigan, mainly in the Ann Arbor and Metro Detroit areas. And one of the things that we've noticed in working with our physician clients is that while everyone's unique when it comes to their personal financial situation, there do tend to be some similarities and recurring themes in terms of the challenges faced by our clients and the questions that we typically hear from them. And we really love financial planning and investing. We kind of nerd out on this stuff, but we also love teaching and educating. So we thought a podcast would be a great platform for that. And we currently provide education and content through our blog and through speaking in person to different physician groups in the area. But we thought a podcast would be a great way to reach a larger audience. So we see the podcast as an opportunity to share our thoughts and experience from helping clients solve some of the common financial problems and provide what we hope is valuable content and knowledge related to some of the topics most relevant for Michigan physicians. And as a side note, Andrew and I happen to be big podcast guys ourselves, so we're fans of this type of media. We're probably collectively subscribed to 20 or more different podcasts?
Yeah, everything from Tim Ferriss to TED Talks and even Michigan football podcasts.
And of course, a bunch of financial planning shows as well. So we love podcasts, and our intention for our show is that in exchange for the time you spend with us, you're able to take away helpful knowledge and strategies that you can then apply in whatever way is best for you, whether that's yourself or through your other advisors. So that's a little bit about the goal for the podcast and our reason for starting it, but you might be wondering who exactly we are, so we want to share a little bit about our personal and professional backgrounds.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Saline, Michigan, and I'm the youngest of 4 with 3 older sisters. And as Trent mentioned, we're brothers-in-law, and luckily we like each other, which makes the business and family dynamic easy. And I went to Miami, Ohio, which is where I met my wife, Jenny. And growing up outside of Ann Arbor, I'm a diehard Michigan fan, and my love for Jenny can be proven by the fact that I voluntarily married into an Ohio State household. Both her parents went to Ohio State, and so that makes for an awkward Thanksgiving every other year as I watch the Michigan-Ohio State game with all Buckeye fans, especially recently as we've been losing all of them. And I've been a happy and proud self-proclaimed Uncle Fun to Trent's kids for the past 5 years, and I'm excited that Jenny and I are actually expecting a baby boy here in a couple months. I'm hoping I can still keep the title as Uncle Fun.
I'm confident you will be.
Sure hope so. And then my passion for finance and investing started when I was 10. And I would sit down with my grandpa, and he'd walk me through the individual stocks that he owned and why he owned them. And I remember asking for Disney stock for Christmas when I was 10. Unfortunately, I didn't know what Amazon was at the time, but I still have those 7 shares and the original stock certificates from them. And then prior to co-founding MD Wealth Management, I worked in Chicago for almost 6 years at 2 separate wealth management firms. And I love being back in the Ann Arbor area and laying down roots for our family. I certainly miss a lot of aspects of Chicago, but it's definitely nice to not have as much traffic. And I joke about this, but the first week I was back out here in Saline and I was driving out to the office, I take the back roads, and I remember I was following a tractor on the road. So I guess it's just a different type of traffic here. And then outside of work, I'm a big sports fan, and I love all things related to Michigan. And I was loyal through the Rich Rod and Brady Hoke eras, and I don't plan on changing anytime soon.
That's dedication right there.
I also enjoy playing tennis and basketball, and I keep telling myself that I'll get back to where I was at in high school, but I'm slowly coming around to the reality that's probably not going to happen anymore.
And as I mentioned, my name's Trent DeBruin, And I'm not from Michigan originally. I actually grew up in rural Wisconsin. My parents were dairy farmers during the early years of my life. And I definitely have great memories of growing up in the country. There was always a ton of space for my brother and sister and I to run around, and we were always outside doing something or another. And that's something I definitely appreciated even more later in life when I lived in Chicago. But when I was in grade school, conditions in the farming industry forced my parents to sell the farm, and they ultimately ended up going out and starting their own business, which I think is where my entrepreneurial streak came from. And my brother happens to have it too. He runs a real estate appraisal business back in Wisconsin. So it seems to be a family thing, but we're still working on our sister to make it 3 for 3 with the siblings, but we'll see about that. And I don't know that I'd imagined a career in finance or business growing up, but I ended up studying finance in college at the University of Notre Dame, and I really enjoyed it. And after graduating from college, I then moved to Chicago to work for a wealth management firm there. And by that point, I'd really fallen in love with finance and investing. And while I was working for my prior firm, I went back to school part-time at the University of Chicago, where I earned an MBA with a focus in finance and economics. And it was around that time that I also met my wife, who is Andrew's sister. So that's how he and I met initially. And as a side note, I know it's not always the most popular being a Notre Dame alum in the Ann Arbor area, but just know that my wife is a U of M alum. So that's my redemption there.
At least we have one smart person in the family, right?
So a few years after meeting Andrew, he and I hatched our plan to start our own firm, and I ended up leaving my job as a partner after 10 years to move to Michigan and launch MD Wealth Management in the fall of 2018. And 2018 was definitely a wild year. So I left my job, moved to another state, started a company. My wife and I built a house, and we had a baby all within 1 year. So I guess I tried to take as many of the life transitions and stressors as possible and cram them all into 1 year. But I survived, and it's been a great move. And the baby we had that year was actually our third child. So I'm a father of 3, all boys, ages 5, 3, and 1. And they're a ton of fun, and they definitely keep my wife and me busy. And similar to Andrew, I'm also a big sports fan for a different team, but I also love working out, reading, and international travel. So you might hear me reference some or all of those things in future shows. So now that you know a little bit about who we are, what can you expect from the podcast? Well, in terms of logistics, our plan is to keep the episode length around 20 to 30 minutes. So hopefully make it easy to listen to during your commute, when you're at the gym, or just doing chores around the house. We know we always appreciate things being more concise and to the point, so we want to deliver that through the show as well. In terms of format, our plan is to keep it conversational and casual and have a mix of episodes featuring just Andrew and me, and also some guest episodes. And the guests that we plan to have on will be subject matter experts with specific expertise and experience working with physicians. So people like estate attorneys, accountants, disability insurance specialists, attorneys who do physician contract reviews. And our hope is that they'll be able to provide some knowledge and some insights from their areas of expertise that are specifically relevant for physicians. And in general, the topics we plan to cover will be those most relevant to physicians in Michigan. Our goal is to be really dialed into this audience so we can keep things as useful as possible. We always think of that quote, if you try to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to anyone. So we want to take that to heart and try to focus as much as possible to make the content impactful. And we know there's no shortage of information out there, but the real value really comes from filtering out what's relevant to you and then understanding how to take that information and actually apply it to your specific situation. And Andrew and I talk about the difference between information and knowledge. So information, that's just a commodity. I mean, Google owns the information trade. But wisdom, which is how and why to use and apply that information, is what's truly valuable. So that's our goal, to be that filter and provide the interpretation and application of the relevant information. And we know many financial planning topics are relevant to all physicians, but there are also a lot of nuances specifically for physicians in the state of Michigan. So things like college planning, asset protection, being employed by some of the large local health systems. In our area alone, we have a number of them. So there's U of M, St. Joe's, IHA, Beaumont, Henry Ford. We know there are a lot of physicians in our area employed by these big health systems. So you'll hear us reference some of them occasionally and speak to some of the financial planning items associated with being employed by them. And just to give you a feel for some of the topics we plan to cover, they'll include everything from tax planning to allocating your income across different uses, protecting your assets, saving for college, maximizing your employer benefits, getting organized with your financial life, investing, estate planning, and more. So a wide range. And similar to the way we work with our clients, covering all areas of their financial lives, with the podcast, we want to focus on providing education in all these different areas as well. Another goal with the podcast will be just to keep things simple and explain them in plain English wherever possible. So we're not going to get way into the weeds to the extent that we can avoid it. And Andrew and I are big fans of the 80-20 rule, not only with financial planning and investing, but with life in general. And for those who aren't familiar with it, it's the general idea that 80% of the outcome is attributable to 20% of the effort. So we always try to focus on that handful of most important things that are really going to move the needle. Also, we know how boring some personal finance topics can be, so we'll try to keep it as interesting as possible. And to that end, we're planning to focus on some non-financial topics as well. A big focus in our own lives and also when working with clients is maximizing overall well-being and quality of life, not just optimizing the financial side of things. We talk about the idea of managing your entire financial life and growing and protecting your wealth while also enjoying life along the way. And we really mean that. So for us, the quality of life aspects are just as important as the financial ones. And it's really all about balance and focusing on both. And some of the non-financial topics we're thinking of covering include things like physician wellness. So how to manage and deal with some of the unfortunate aspects of the profession and some of the byproducts that come with it. Ways to gain back time. Physicians are obviously a busy group, which makes time management even more important. And also personal productivity. Anytime you can do more in less time, whether that's in your personal life or professional life, that's a big win, especially for people who have more demanding work schedules and just less time in general. And we hope that through some of our future conversations on the show, we'll be able to help you think about and ask some of the right questions to get clear on what you want out of life, so you can make the best decisions for your professional quality of life, your personal quality of life, and your financial quality of life. And that might sound a little soft, but we believe it's really important, and we think there aren't enough people out there asking those types of questions. So that's an overview of the show and what it's going to be about. And now that you know what it's going to be, it's probably worth taking a minute to explain what it's not going to be.
Yeah, so here's what you shouldn't expect from the podcast. It's definitely not going to be about an investment show focused on stock tips, trying to time the market or beat the market. You'll find that when we do share some investment education in future episodes, we have a much different approach and philosophy on what's the most effective way to approach investing. And as we said earlier, we're also going to try to avoid going too far into the weeds. And for any given topic, we want to make sure that we cover the most important points from a high-level perspective, but not bore people by going into every last nuance or number. We're always happy to go into more of the details and answer any questions on a one-on-one basis, but for the purposes of this show, we'll try to keep it higher level. And then in terms of logistics, we're hosting the podcast on the podcast page of our website at mdwmllc.com. And our goal is to release episodes twice a month. And after every episode, we'll have a show notes as well as additional resources that were talked about during the show. And we'll also have links for any guests that we had on in case that's something you find interesting or you want to get in touch with them to get more information.
So that covers it for episode number 1. It feels good to have the first episode out there, and we're really excited for future episodes. And we just want to thank everyone for bearing with us through this first episode. We want to just give you a feel for the goal of the show and the people behind it. So hopefully we've managed to accomplish that and you have a good idea of what to expect going forward. And if you have any feedback, please do let us know. We'd love to hear from you. We certainly want to make the content as relevant and helpful for you as possible. So we appreciate any suggestions. And we always try to have a growth mindset with whatever it is we're doing. So we welcome the opportunity to make changes or improvements. So suggestions, either positive or constructive criticism, are all appreciated. So if you have questions you'd like answered on the show, or if you have an idea for a topic, feel free to email us at info@mdwmllc.com. Our plan is to do some mailbag type episodes in the future as we gather questions from our listeners. And also, if you have suggestions for guests, by all means, pass those along as well. We always enjoy getting to meet new people, and we welcome the chance to talk to anyone who can share a useful or valuable perspective for our audience. Again, this is Trent DeBruin and Andrew Mushbaugh. Our firm is MD Wealth Management, and our website's mdwmllc.com. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We're really excited to have you here. We certainly appreciate the time together, and we look forward to talking to everyone again soon. Take care.
Want even more ideas, tools, and resources on how to make smart financial decisions? Check out the resources section of MD Wealth Management's website at mdwmllc.com, where you'll find additional knowledge and insight from Michigan physicians, including a blog, ebook, and one-page guides. While there, you can also schedule a 15-minute conversation with Andrew and Trent to learn more about what it means to work with the firm and how they serve physicians. If you've enjoyed the content, please leave a review on iTunes and share with your friends and colleagues. Thanks so much for listening. Andrew Mushbaugh and Trent DeBruin are certified financial planners, principals, and co-founders of MD Wealth Management, a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Michigan. All opinions shared in the show are for general information and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future returns. Please consult with your legal advisor, your tax advisor, or your financial advisor before making any decisions.